Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Smart Money. Now, in the run-up to Independence Day in August, we thought about a topic that deserves a lot of attention. It's spoken about often, but still, there's no harm in repeating some of these classics. Financial independence is what we're talking about. So today we're going to talk about what are the most important tools to achieve financial independence. You're never too young or too old to get started. So to help us out, we have two guests, two veterans actually in the industry, Vivek Bajaj of StockEdge and Mrin Agarwal of Finsafe India. Both, Mrin and Vivek have been doing a lot of work to help people, to help investors achieve financial independence at a younger age than perhaps what they had thought earlier. So, lady and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on the show. Vivek, we had this discussion, I think, a couple of episodes earlier as well, about how it's never too late to start your journey in financial independence. But if one has, perhaps no idea how to start, what are the different steps in achieving financial independence?
Thank you for having me, and it's always a pleasure to interact with you, Sonia. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give clear-cut 5 steps to begin with this journey of financial independence. By the way, financial independence for me, every one of us will have a unique definition. But for me, if I want to live a lifestyle in a particular way, I should afford that lifestyle. So that's the definition of financial independence for me. When we start working on it, first thing first, is to know ourselves. I think most of the people, they don't know who they are, what is their background. In fact, they actually know it, but they have not really thought about it, that finance and their respective background can have a very strong correlation. So know your background, your family background, your education. If you are from a finance background, in your education, you think in a very different manner. If you are from arts background, you think in a very different manner. So it's important to pen down those things, because your understanding of finance will be very different. Your approach of understanding of finance will be very different depending upon your background. Then some mathematics. What is your current household savings? How much you guys are spending in terms of living a lifestyle, and how much you are earning? And finally, what's the net household savings, if at all you have? Because these days, a lot of households are becoming net debt households, which is not a great thing for our country. But the fact remains that there is still larger population of households who are net savers in our country. Then the long-term objective, why you want to have a financial independence, and in what form. Do you want to buy a Mercedes after 10 years, or do you want to enjoy a lot of travel, a lot of holidays after 10 years? All these things have to be really penned down. And I suggest it should not be only individual-driven objectives. It should be as a family. Everyone should sit together and pen down all these things in a proper Excel sheet. And you can define a goal for yourself, and accordingly you can plan your investment journey to meet that goal. So first step was to know yourself. The second step is to know your risk profile. All of us are very unique. Our risk profile is very unique. So it's very difficult for us to draw a very generic conclusion that if you do this, you will reach there. No, it's not possible, because all of us think in a very unique manner. Sure. So it's important for us to know the risk profile of individuals and learn.
I have one follow-up before you carry on. Is there a particular age or a particular salary bracket after which you start your investing journey? I'm asking because there are many youngsters who approach me saying that, we don't even make enough to meet our monthly needs, whether it's rent, whether it's, sending money back home. People live in different cities as well. So when do you actually make that cutoff and say, okay, now I'm ready to start my investing journey?
I think investing journey should start as early as 13-year-old, because the habit formation happens when you are very young. Maybe you are not making the money, but you can always ask your parents to give you some pocket money extra, so that you can use that pocket money to invest in some assets. It could be a simple SIP where you just have to park 500 rupees a month. So when you start to build a habit, and in the habit building formation, you learn. And when you are learning, the knowledge gets converted into wisdom as you gain more experience. So start early, as Mr. Warren Buffett also says, as early as possible, because you need to start earning the knowledge at least as early as possible. Okay,
so start early and as early as possible. Mrin Agarwal, someone who's been advising people for over decades now. Let's talk about financial security, right? Most people do have some amount of emergency fund and insurance as well. So what can they do so that their financial freedom journey is not compromised, Mrin?
Thank you for having me on the show, Sonia, and it's always a pleasure to be here. Well, I do see people having some sort of an emergency fund and some sort of financial security. In fact, we ourselves run a survey of investors, and our own survey tells us that most people actually have some form of financial security, which is emergency cash and life and health insurance. But the dilemma that they really face is that they are not sure whether it is enough, because most of it is actually what they receive from the employer. So when you look at, especially when you look at health insurance, right? So I think people do have it, but I think where they're lagging is the fact that they do not have an adequate amount of cover. And I think that is what people really need to start working on. So for starters, again, given the changing world order that Vivek also spoke about, I think it's really important to have at least 6 months of expenses kept aside as emergency cash. So look at what you have, and if you're somewhere in that 2 to 3 month range, then it means that you need to increase it to 6 months. Again, in terms of life covers, just having a cover is not enough, right? And most people in India tend to buy investment-linked insurance, which does not give them very high insurance cover, not what they actually need. So firstly, figure out what your need is, and it's very easy. Every insurance company has an HLV calculator that's available that's going to tell you how much insurance you need. And the only way that you can actually meet that is through a term plan. The second thing on the health insurance that I would like to say is that apart from the employer cover, look at taking some amount of additional covers, because today for a family of 4, given the medical expenses, I think you do need somewhere around 10 to 15 lakhs of health insurance cover.
Okay, so that's on insurance, right? One more question, Mrin, before we move forward. There has been a rapid growth in consumption-led credit products, right? Whether it's credit cards, whether it's consumer durable loans, personal loans. As Vivek was also mentioning, people's debt has risen, right? Especially by young Indians. So they spend a lot more than they earn. I don't know if that's a problem just of this generation, but you tell me. You mentioned limiting loans as one of the key issues to achieve financial independence. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I know it sounds very easy for us to say it, and it looks very difficult for people to do it, especially someone who has a lot of loans. And yes, I also meet and come across people with numerous loans, especially a lot of unsecured high-cost loans. So we've taken the case of, let's say, 2 people who are earning the same salary, which is 83,000, and one person has a home loan of 30 lakhs. The second person has a home loan of 50 lakhs. Okay, for 20 years, it's 7%. Now we have just calculated that based on their home loans, whatever is left to invest, the person goes and invests the money, and then we've also kept some money aside for expenses, right? So you can see what is the effect of having a higher loan in the portfolio. And mind you, here we're talking about home loan, and I know I've done the calculation at 7%. We should have actually done it at 9%. But all I was trying to just show is that at one end, you have investments compounding. At other end, you have the interest compounding, right? And you might end up having an asset, right? But at the end of the day, the interest is actually eaten into your returns. Okay. I think it's really important. It's very easy for us to, come out here and give this advice. But clearly, I think what works is limiting your EMIs to 30% of your take-home income. And if you are doing this along with your partner, then I am saying it's 30% of the combined income. I have seen cases where one partner's entire salary is going towards repaying loans, right? So I think the way to do it is to get this number in your mind and try to bring it down to this number. And of course, the easier it has become to get loans, the more loans people are taking. But the idea is to really just stay away from, all of this no cost EMIs and all of these Insta loans and stuff like this. Just stay away from it.
Absolutely, and even the FIRE method, right? When we talk about retiring early or retiring by 40, one of the key tenets of the FIRE method is limiting your loans and limiting your expenses. That's the only way you can achieve early retirement. Got that? So that's a very, very important advice coming through, Mrin. Thanks for that. We take a short break. Don't go anywhere. Lots more coming up on the other side. We'll tell you how to achieve financial independence and the key tools you need. Welcome back to Smart Money. Financial independence is a superpower and we all know that by now. But today we're talking about some of the hidden tricks and tips that you can use to smoothen your financial independence journey. Mrin Agarwal, financial educator and director at Finsafe India, and Vivek Bajaj, co-founder of StockEdge, is with us. Vivek, I want your thoughts on, the point that Mrin was making earlier, right? About how one of the key tenets of financial independence is not to have high debt and to limit your loans. And to sort of track your loans well. Anything else that you think people need to know, which are some hidden tips and tricks to achieve financial independence earlier?
I think EMI is something which is given, and we all have to live with that reality that our aspiration level is going up and debt is the most relevant way to meet those aspirations. So there's nothing wrong with it. Yes, I agree to her that limiting your EMI outflow and kind of exhausting that after an age becomes much more sensible. I also want to point a very important concept here which people don't take into account is a personalized inflation. In fact, we did talk about it, Sonia, a couple of months ago, where the inflation rate which we think of, which is published everywhere, and the inflation which actually we see in the market today, and the inflation which actually we experience as we grow in our lifestyle, so those three are very different numbers. What is personalized inflation? As we grow in our life, as we aspire to get a better lifestyle, every time you reach a threshold of your lifestyle, you want to go to the next level. So the inflation is never linear for you. It's always non-linear because, once you buy a particular brand car, you don't think about the next brand car, which is just X value. You always think of 2x immediately because you want to, get into the next level of lifestyle much faster than probably a linearity would suggest. So when you are making an Excel sheet for yourself, please take into account the fact that every 5-6 years, you will change. The environment will change you. That will lead to a much aggressive increase in inflation for you than what it will be available as a published data. So can you manage that? Can you make that? You can only do that if you have a very deep understanding about all the financial assets. Because if your money is parked in bank FD, not taking credit from banks, they have done a great job in at least inculcating that habit of forced saving. But then if your money is parked in plain simple vanilla FD, your lifestyle will not see a change. You may actually beat the inflation, but your lifestyle will probably remain where it was.
A lot of young investors, Vivek, ask me how to make that first 1 crore, right? Because the first 1 crore is the toughest. And then post that, of course, we know the power of compounding takes over. What would your advice be to them?
This is the most tough, it's the toughest thing to do for making that first 1 crore today. And maybe after 10 years, we'll say that first 5 crore how to make because the power of money is actually getting reduced day by day. So depending upon what you are doing, what kind of qualification you have, what is your occupation, I always recommend people that you need a more stable money earning opportunity in the first 1 crore. You don't want to experiment with aggressive asset classes. So if you are in a job and you are getting a salary, that is also an asset class. Do not disparage your job or your salary which you are getting. It is very important asset class for you, and you build your capital on top of the savings from those asset classes. So the best way is save from whatever income you are generating either through a business or through a job, and then use stable asset classes. I recently interacted with someone who was actually using real estate to build that initial capital by leveraging the real estate. The guy gave me a very good perspective that, real estate is actually the most leveraged asset because you just pay a down payment today and you actually get EMI, which is much lower cost for your capital build up. So there are various ways, there are methods, various unique asset classes which can be deployed. But yes, first 1 crore has to be very stable, which should give you enough confidence that yes, you are capable of converting that 1 crore to 10 crore as well.
Okay, and Mrin has very helpfully put together a table for us, right? Mrin, with rising lifespans and inflation being what it is, a good retirement seems to be a bit of a challenge now. But you tell us, what's the way out?
Yes, and so the same thing is happening even when investors save for retirement, which is that the amount that is being saved is not adequate. And that's because most people actually just go by this estimation to say, okay, my expenses is 1 lakh a month, so I'll just multiply it into 12 into whatever number of years and then decide to save like that. And to Vivek's point, I completely agree with what he said that, our lifestyle expenses are growing by 2x every 5 or 10 years. So, today, whatever your expenses are, you have to actually account for much higher expenses, right? So the best way to, of course, do it is use a retirement calculator. There are many calculators that are available online. And again, just to give you an idea that when you're trying to do things on your own, then you might actually underestimate it a lot versus when you actually use a calculator. So again, this simple calculation, that if you're 35 today, having expenses of 1 lakh a month, planning to retire at 60 maybe, and work till the age of 80, and we have assumed inflation at a very low 5% and return of investment at 8%, right? So a very, very conservative person ke liye we have done this. Now, by estimation, most people who are in this sort of a profile would say, oh, I need about 3-4 crores for retirement. What they actually need is about 7.5 crores.
Okay.
And versus what they're investing, they need to be investing at least 1.5 to 2 times more, right? So I think that's one bit of it, the amount that you're investing. The second thing is that for retirement, again, most people tend to stick only to the safer product, like for example, EPF, and they don't really want to think beyond that. I think I've done many shows on retirement with you where I've always talked about the fact that I think NPS is a great investment. It's a very good way to save for retirement. It gives you equity exposure at a low cost. And again, I mean, just a simple math that today, if you actually have to reach that large number, okay, the only way that you can actually do it is by adding some amount of equity to your portfolio, because the debt investment can only get you that much. So I would say that even for retirement, you need to have at least 30% exposure to equity, even more probably, and you can afford to have it if you have more than 10 years to go for retirement, certainly.
To be honest, if you're a 35-year-old, and I just want to pull up that chart once again, if you're a 35-year-old living in some of the big cities like Mumbai, it's very hard to take out 75,000 per month and invest in equities, right? I know that for sure. I'm sure there's less than 1% of the population that can do that. So Vivek, I want you to come in on this. I mean, I know it's the right way to approach it. It's the ideal way, but we don't live in an ideal world. What do you do then?
Well, that's why less than 1% people make most of the money, right? And they need to learn, they need to be frugal, they need to understand the value of equity and the power of equity and how much return you can generate by investing methodologically in equity. Just to give you some data, if you look at last 5 years performance of equity market, indices have given you return of around 13.5, 14%, okay, Nifty. And if you will be surprised to know that gold has given you return of 13.5% in last 5 years. I mean, we actually never think about gold as a financial asset. It's more of a household need. But even as a financial asset, because rupee has depreciated, gold has given such a phenomenal return. And then in coming 5 years, if I have to talk about equity, because I'm an equity guy, so I can only give you guidance on how to invest rightly in equity. Small cap indices has been massively underperformer in last 5 years. If you look at the data, I mean, Nifty has given a return of around 74% in absolute terms in last 5 years. Mid cap indices has given 99% return, and small cap has given 57% return only. That means if you just do a basic mathematics and 10,000 view about India as an opportunity, for sure coming 5 years, which belongs to India, small caps will do very well. Now, directly investing in small cap is not advisable because it needs a lot of homework. So small cap indices are pretty much good options. So have an asset allocation in such a way that there is a equity, gold, a bit of debt, maybe for a youngster, I think debt is not something you want. Maybe you go for a hybrid fund. But equity becomes a very important part if you are a youngster, because your future will need a lot of capital, because your aspirations is definitely going up.
Okay, quickly, we don't have too much time. So Mrin, final question to you. You know, a lot of people ask me for financial advice, and I don't have a SEBI registration. So I say, why don't you go to a financial advisor? And they say, oh, you're our friend, you're our family, you advise us, it's enough. Do you think, this is a big debate, right, whether you need a financial advisor or not. Do you think one is needed?
Of course, being a financial advisor myself.
You wouldn't say no, yeah?
Yeah, I wouldn't say no, but I think one should also understand the role of a financial advisor is not to just tell you what fund or what scheme to invest into. I think when you work with a financial advisor, it should be to create a plan for yourself, because what I think both Vivek and I have been trying to tell you through the show is that you need to have a structure, you need to have a plan, and in order to have this structure or plan, you need to take professional help, which a financial planner can actually give you. So they can help you draw up a plan, they can handhold you through volatile time, and also navigate newer products and markets. For example, if you want to do actively managed small cap funds, for example, versus the index, or other opportunities that are there in the small cap space, right? So, or in any other, place in the financial market. So I think, investors do tend to also lose more by taking wrong investment decisions themselves than what they pay on financial advice. I would certainly say look for a fee-only financial planner and work with them on a financial plan.
Okay, well, Mrin and Vivek, we've run out of time, but not out of questions. Always very, very helpful. And in the run-up to Independence Day, we hope that, more and more people achieve financial independence, which is, as I said, a superpower. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, with that, it is curtains down on another edition of Smart Money. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend.